My name is John Holguin with the Tax Collector's Office. This is Justin Gordin, and Justin's actually going to be doing the bulk of the presentation today in the training class. He's going to start by going over a PowerPoint presentation that we have about the tax certificate sale, and then after that we're going to go live on our website on how to sign on, how to bid, how to search the different kind of parcels you may be interested in, and just the overall procedure and how to work it. So, real relaxed setting. He loves questions. If you have a question, go ahead and ask it. A lot of times it will be covered later on in the presentation of the first half, so we'll pause after that for questions also. So at any time if you have a question,
yeah, it'll be relaxed.
Raise your hand.
Is this PowerPoint presentation online also?
It's not. We're actually filming it today, so we are getting a video online. It is not currently online.
And I'm going to pass around a sign-up sheet, though. If you want to put your emails down, we don't sell those or hand them out, but what we can do is send you by email the PowerPoint and any other forms. There's some forms we'll get you later on that people are usually interested in. We will email those also.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and start. It's in there. And here's a pin.
All yours.
Yeah, so while John's handing out a few things, the handout just has some questions and answers and then some statistics on the back side, which we'll cover later in the presentation. But again, my name is Justin Gordin. I'm the tax administrator for the Tax Collector's Office. And just going to basically give you a walkthrough of the tax certificate sale process, how we get there, and then some helpful hints on research and bidding and so on and so forth. But just kind of tell you about certificates at first. And then, like John said, we'll go live on the Bid Okaloosa site, show you some I guess searching tools on there where you can filter out that advertisement list, because it is quite large. It's over 5,000 parcels that are left currently. So to go through that one by one would be quite fun. But anyways, our tax certificate sale happens annually, once a year. And it's June 1st. We do that June 1st every year by statute. That's the last day we can do it, and we do it on that day. It is held online via website, bidokaloosa.com. I'll get into that in a few minutes. But before we go too in-depth, I'll kind of tell you what a tax certificate is. It's a first lien against real estate property that earns interest as high as 18% a year. It has a 7-year lifespan, but you're guaranteed a minimum of 5% total interest on your investment. And I'll get into all the details on how the interest is earned in that. But as far as the first lien, basically in essence, you're paying an unpaid tax in the county. In exchange, you're getting interest on that money whenever that homeowner then comes in and pays those taxes down the road. That way the county, by you buying a certificate, gets the money we need to operate, and then we disperse those funds also out to all the taxing authorities as well. So that's kind of the basis behind a tax certificate. Kind of to walk you through the steps on how we get there, we bill out all of our bills on November 1st each year, and if they're not paid by April 1, they're considered delinquent. So we have these delinquent parcels out there, and about mid-April we run a report for a newspaper, and it's run in the Crestview News Bulletin, and it's an advertisement list. We have to run that 3 times by statute, and they ran May 9th, 16th, and 23rd, so last Wednesday was the last advertisement list. It's a big paper form. It's like 26 pages, but that list is also on our website and on the Bid Okaloosa site, so it's an electronic form. You can go and download a copy, and actually the links are clickable within the electronic version, so it might be a little more handy for searching parcels that way. So we run that advertisement, and then ultimately if the taxes aren't paid by that property owner by June 1, the certificate gets sold on it. Now the site opened for bidding on May 9th, the first day of the advertisement, and the bidding runs all the way through until the June 1 close of each batch. And I'll get into details on how our batches are set up and what times they close and stuff like that. So bidding is actually open now. And so if you were to log in and go place a bid, you know, there's already folks in there doing that. I'll touch on in a minute why they don't really have an advantage over you by getting in there any earlier. And that's just how our winners are selected. I'll get into those details. But so kind of a good way to look at how to participate. First, you have to register for our tax certificate sale. I don't know if anyone's registered yet, but that just requires some simple information from you, a name and address, some contact information, and it sets you up a user ID or login and password. That way you can access the site and get in there and look around. And then second is to do research. Do research on the parcels you're buying a certificate on. Keep in mind, when you buy a certificate, you're not buying actual ownership of the property. You're just buying a certificate which constitutes a lien against that. But through the 7-year lifespan, if you own a certificate, you can eventually call for the sale of that property in which you might wind up owning it. So even though that's unlikely to happen, it is a possibility, so it is good to research and see what you're buying a certificate on. Research also includes seeing maybe the history on that account of, what's their time span on paying off certificates on their account. So you can kind of take into consideration, on average these people wait 10 months after the sale to pay, so you can kind of guesstimate what interest you might earn if you buy that certificate. So there's a lot of different aspects of the research, but I'll touch on that as well and some helpful sites to go to in order to do that research. Third, you place a deposit. And I'll get into details on how a deposit works, but you place a deposit and then you can actually start submitting bids on the accounts you wish to buy a certificate on. And then you actually place your bid, and that's where you go in after you found the parcels you want, and then you bid, and you actually bid down the interest. So let's start at 18, and you'd select whatever interest rate you'd be willing to accept. And that person who is willing to accept the lowest amount of interest per year would win that certificate. So first, that bidokaloosa.com site, that's kind of where all this stuff takes place. You log in there, and then you can do all your research. You can do all that from this one central location. Here's what the site looks like. It's been redesigned this year, so I don't know if you've looked at it in years past. It was just a blue screen last year with our name at the top. This year they've kind of dressed it up a little. I'll go to a live image of this later and kind of show you where you can click on things. Just to point out now, you can see the advertisement list is right there on that front page. You don't even have to have a user login or ID to access the advertisement list. You can click on it and view it. And then so next, we'll touch on research. Some helpful sites. First is our tax collector website. It's also been redesigned, so it might look a little different if you haven't been on there in a while. But our site's good for looking up historical tax data as far as seeing if the history on an account, how often are they unpaid or how often do they go delinquent and pay off. You can also pull a copy of the advertisement list off of here as well, and a tax sale booklet, which is a lot more detailed than that one-page handout you have there. It's a 4-page handout. It goes over the rules of the sale and a bunch of the ins and outs, which I'm covering today, but if you want it in paper form, you can access it there, or I can email it to you afterwards as well. The Okaloosa Property Appraiser's website is also very good for researching parcels. You can get a lot of information on there. You can get sales history on the property. You can get, they have what they call like a field card or a property card view, which gives you all the details on the property, the owner, mailing address, if there's a building, what it's zoned, residential or commercial. You can see the square footage of the building. You can see any additions to the building, such as like fireplaces or docks or anything like that. So it has a lot of information on their site. You can also find maps, which is good to see. You can see an aerial view of the parcel you're looking at to know, are you looking at a parcel that's landlocked in the middle of woods surrounding it? Or are you looking at a parcel that is in a neighborhood or on the water? So you can get a good bird's eye view of the actual property from their site. Then last is the Clerk of Court's website. It's also handy for ownership records, but more importantly, you can see if there's any other liens or encumbrances against that property. Now keep in mind, tax certificate is the first lien, so it's superior to any other lien out there. But as far as I've seen some people use this to see if maybe there's a mortgage on the property or anything like that, because typically a mortgage is going to step up and protect their asset and pay off your property. And we'll get this back up and running. Go ahead.
.cc or?
It is .cc.
Okay.
I would assume that stands for Clerk of Court, but I'm not 100% sure. And
Since they're still having issues, obviously, with their power, if you don't mind, this is a good time to ask some questions. We'll set up our secondary projector. Hey, can you give me a hand with that?
we come with a backup.
There's also some things to keep in mind when you went over the search side. He's going to get into that a little bit deeper.
Yeah,
There's
I'll-
undesirable properties out there too, and that's really why you want to search. Some of those might be, a landlocked property that has no easements or driveways, any way to get into it. You want to make sure that that's not something that you're bidding on. Swamp land, all kind of different examples. the research side is really important. And later, when Justin goes live on our bid Okaloosa site, that's really going to be
The power cord.
probably the engine y'all use the most. You can break it down to townships, cities. He'll show you how to do price ranges, maybe $100 to $500. You know, everything greater than $500, everything less than, however you want to do it, $1,000. You can also search just for homesteaded property, which is probably a good place to start. If you haven't bid before, I would start with, homesteaded properties or commercial properties. They're pretty secure. And then he'll show you how to go to.
Do we have no power in the room?
On the PA side, you can actually look down at that property and make sure that it is a house, or it does have easements into it. There's a lot of properties or parcels, I should say, the north end that when a lot of these contractors were out and developing property and making neighborhoods, they bought maybe 100-acre plots, and then they split them up, in little parcels all the way across, and it's going to show lot A, B, 1, 2, 3, whatever the number is. When you look at it on the map, it's just a 100-acre square or rectangle that has no roads, sewers, power, nothing's been ran there yet. So those are the kind of ones to look out for. But there's a lot of them that are winners. He'll get into it. We've got probably on average about 5,000, 5,000 parcels that'll be up for sale on June 1st. That's when the sale happens. Out of 103,000, yes, sir.
So what's the 7-year thing?
Yeah, I'll touch on that.
Yeah, that one I might let him get to because it is pretty in-depth.
Okay.
Just the short of it is,
I'll go ahead and talk about that while we're getting power in here. We just lost power if you just walked in. But the 7-year lifespan, certificate's issued on June 1, and then that 7-year clock starts ticking. I'll go all the way to the 7-year ending date. If no action is taken, and the action I'm talking about is if that property owner hasn't paid or a tax deed application has not been filed, then the certificate actually expires and your investment is lost. So you would then get no money and no interest back. There's way,
the easy way to remember that, if you don't do any action within the first 7 years, then it's done.
Here,
The limitations are ran off,
and that thing,
out on that certificate.
you can balance it out with cards.
2 years is when you can push for the tax deed sale. So you have options in there. You can push for the sale, and he'll go more in depth than that. But let him pick right back up here, and we're getting close to the.
I'll definitely talk back about how to make your tax deed application, the cost involved with that, and how that really you're forcing your hand by filing that to get your information done. But just to jump back, clerk of court, it's good to know if there's other liens or encumbrances on the property. It's like I was saying, if there's a mortgage, they're more than likely to step up and protect their asset and pay off that unpaid tax, because they can lose their mortgage on the property if it goes through the tax deed sale process and the clerk of court sells it. So some people use it for that, and also IRS liens are important to look at. Those are one of the few liens that would not be extinguished through the sale of the property, so it is good to know if there is an IRS lien against the property or anything like that. And then to jump back, so we talked about registration, and then we went to research. This is the actual deposit. Our deposits are done via ACH, and that's like just an electronic form in order to push us funds. And basically that started on May 9th this year, corresponded with the first day of the sale opening up. It's required prior to bidding, so before you place any bid, you have to put a deposit down.